Hey, my name is Brittany, and I read Percy Jackson Olympians, The Last Olympian, for the first time. And y'all, get y'all snacks, Once again, I was organized this time, and I wrote my thoughts down after every chapter I read. We're gonna jump straight into it, because I've been rewatching some of the old videos. It was Yap City. Chapter 1. It didn't take me long to finish this book. Oh girl, it took me 9 days. Okay, I started on March 21st. I just finished it this morning. That's why I'm still in the PJs. And while it's fresh in my mind, that's what I wanted to get into. Okay. Chapter 1, I put, I'm already irritated because Rachel and Percy are in Paul Blufus's car. So it was established kind of that Paul just let Percy drive around, which is really cool. I rock with Paul the long way. And also I saw some fan castings of Paul. And that one guy from New Girl, Nick, I don't remember his actual name, but I see the vision for that. So if his inbox is open for an acting role for Disney and he has contracts that allow it, yeah, I would love to see it. Okay, I remember Rachel driving with Percy alone, and I was kind of like, what is the reason for that? And then it was kind of established that they was liking each other, and I wasn't liking that. But disclaimer, I really like Rachel a lot, and I'm gonna get into it later because some of the dynamics that was going on I just wasn't feeling. But I do like Rachel. I had a preconceived notion against her because of what Twitter was saying, but then when I was reading the book, I was like, wait, I can form my own opinions and thoughts and beliefs, right? But I said I was irritated because she had either kissed him on the cheek or something like that. And then Blackjack or somebody was like, I'm not going to tell Annabeth about that. Because, Annabeth would have been very upset. She would have been very upset. I'm pretty sure she finds out eventually, I think, maybe in another book series that the author written. I'm not sure because I've only read the Olympian series or the 5 books that I got. But Blackjack got on top of the car, and it was kind of established. She was like, oh, my big hero, my blonde, curly-headed hero. Oh, if you must go, I'll see you away to, save the world or whatever. And so Percy and this guy named Chris Beckensdorf, or not Charles Beckensdorf. I'm talking about some Chris. Charles, they go on the ship. I'm just gonna call it the demon ship because y'all know I'm not very keen on pronouncing some of this stuff. Percy and Beckensdorf, they're getting on the Princess Andromeda, and Kronos is there, which is Luke, but it's Kronos, but it's Luke, but it's Kronos, but it's Luke. And something happens with the boiler room. I didn't write down every little nook and cranny of the context to remember everything that happened exactly. All I know is Beckensdorf got a watch one that has a bomb attached to it. And he's looking at Percy, and they're communicating telepathically. They're not actually communicating telepathically, but it's kind of a mutual understanding while looking each other in each other's eyes, right? That Charles was like, I gotta do something for the greater good. And Percy was like, no, don't. Even though we had a certain plan and now we can't do what we wanted to do, please don't do this. He was like, Percy, just trust me. Percy, just trust. Percy trusts, and Charles sacrifices himself for the greater good. And this is really important for the whole entire book. Obviously, a character death is hard. It was an honorable death, but I wasn't attached to the Charlie character as much. And I'll say the same for a couple of other characters that were staples in this book that played a huge role. Charles played a huge role in this book. Even though he wasn't alive for most of it, he played a really big role. So when I'm thinking, if Disney Plus be in their writing bag, when seasons 3 and 4 come out, we need to establish some of these characters like the Stoll brothers. We need to establish Charles or Charlie. We need to establish Selena. So when certain things happen, it hits. it hits. So after Beckendorf sacrificed himself, Percy, he floats to the bottom of the ocean once again, wishing he were dead or something. I'm not sure if it said that, but that was the vibe it was giving. Because he was hoping with his dearest of dearest hearts that Beckendorf was alive, but I'm sorry to tell you, he did not make it. Chapter 2. Percy is in the sea and he's in his father's domain. And he sees Tyson working in the armory, you know, building weapons, XYZ, XYZ. He's Poseidon, he sees his dad and he's talking with his dad. And Poseidon is working really hard to fight whatever is challenging his domain. And they're mentioning Oceanus, like one of the older, I won't say guardians of the sea, but like older, more ancient sea gods. I'm not sure if they established Oceanus as a titan or if he was just one of those ones. I don't remember. But Oceanus and his army, they aligned with Kronos. And this is very bad for Poseidon because Poseidon has authority over the sea right now. You hear what I'm saying? And so if Oceanus try to take reign again, it's kind of like, I was going to say something, but that wouldn't be appropriate. Like a peeing contest, if you will. So Poseidon is not looking too good, and the effects of battle and war is really wearing him down. Percy was saying that the gods can look however they want to, and he was thinking about this as he was talking to Poseidon. And I don't know if Poseidon was being a little bit performative, because I say this because I could just be looking into this a little too deep. Because Poseidon was saying something along the lines of he wanted to, I guess, appear how he was feeling on the inside. And so when he had sent Percy away and was talking about Tyson and the armory, at first he wasn't wanting Tyson to help in the war and all that stuff. We'll get into that later. And as he was sending Percy away, Percy says he sees Poseidon grow a little bit more like deranged looking. I'm paraphrasing by a long shot, but it's kind of just like, I get it. Like, you like your children, you love your children. I don't know. I rock with Poseidon, I guess, but it's just sometimes the way that his character is written just makes me feel like he's not serious. Like, he's just an unserious character to me. I don't know why. But he sends Percy back to the earth, and he also forewarns Percy about there being a traitor, or not a traitor, a spy within the midst of the camp. And he tells Percy he needs to go back to camp and talk to Chiron to get the full prophecy in its fullness. The full wordings of the full prophecy in its fullness. Okay, pause. I know in book 3's review and book 4's review, I said, oh, Chiron's not, because I got that spoilered. But I didn't see that anywhere in the book, so I don't know if it's in an alternative, another book within, like, the realm of the Percy Jackson realm, where Chiron's an op, or, like, Percy can't trust him. Like, I'm not really sure what those people was talking about. Let me take a sip of, y'all, this is the best flavor. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I just call it LaCroix. It could be LaCroix. I don't know. I'm not a French woman, but it's the best flavor to me. And when I was looking at reviews before trying it, because at first I was like, what does sunshine taste like? And nothing was really telling me. But someone said it tastes like the clear Haribo gummy bear, and it does. It's like a pineapple-y flavor. And when I had drank this for the first time, it took me so long to figure out what pineapple tasted like. I was like, this tastes like something. This tastes like something. And y'all, instead of me thinking, oh, it tastes like a food or like a food adjacent item, I was like, this tastes like how my native pineapple body wash smells. And I was talking to my sister and I was like, I can get it right now so you can smell it. It tastes exactly like it. And she was like, so it tastes like pineapple. And I was like, girl, like, you're right. But I don't know. Sometimes your brain just operates on that wavelength. Chapter 3. We get the full prophecy from the oracle, the spirit of Delphi. We figure out that she is the last oracle, and that's why she's all decrepit and green and snake looking and dry skin and just like, oh. But we don't know why. Selena is crying really, really bad, and Clarice is mad about something, but we don't know why yet. So Clarice is kind of holding a grudge, and she's not wanting to engage in certain conversations with people, and just, you know, being Clarice. Just being Clarice, like, that's her. If she was acting any other way, that's when we would be concerned, right? But she withdraws the Ares cabin from fighting. So we know that camp has to hold their ground. Camp has to eventually, I'm not sure if we get this information yet, but I'm just reading it how I wrote it, have to defend Olympus, have to defend Manhattan, have to defend camp, and like all these other territories. We get into the part of the book where I think it's Typhon. Can y'all hear the birds chirping in the back? Just let it be like, it'll be like ambiance. So we get into the part of the book where Typhon is released, and he's causing a lot of havoc and natural disasters in the eyes of man, or the eyes of the mortals, or the eyes of those who are not true, those with true sight who can see through the mist. And I'm saying natural disasters of great renowns, volcanoes are erupting, tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis. It was just a whole bunch of strong winds, wars and rumors of wars, that whole vibe. Percy's human friends. I put Percy's human friends, but I'm unsure as to what I was getting at when I wrote that down, so we're just going to skip past that. But we hear the full prophecy, and it insinuates that Percy dies. Because at this point, he's like, I'm the child of the prophecy, and everybody is trying to hype him up. Not hype him up, but they're trying to be like, oh, well, or make him feel better. They're trying to make him feel better because we hear what the prophecy is in its fullness, with the full words of everything going on. And we also know that Annabeth knew the full prophecy, and that the full prophecy was like written on a piece of paper and like stuffed into like a necklace around the oracle's neck in like a bead or something. And it was like, girl, the prophecy was there the whole time and nobody said none. And then Annabeth was also like, oh, like I heard this story ever since I was a little girl and it scared me. And it's like, you knew this the whole entire time? I thought how they was building it up that Chiron had like just recently told her in like the last book of the book before, but you're telling me she was listening to the prophecy as a bedtime story, and other campers perchance knew about this, and Percy was just like, what's the prophecy? Like, it's gonna be me. And everyone's like, it's best that you don't know. Which I get it a little bit, like, hey, sometimes the things you know, which actually it's not no sometimes, the things you know can dictate the actions that you do or don't do. And this ideology is explored later in the book, and I'm glad they touched on it, because, ooh girl, had I had an experience in my own life where if I would have known certain things, I wouldn't have done certain things, and vice versa. We live and we learn and we move on, and don't feel bad for anything you did because there was information you didn't know. This is what the prophecy is. A half-blood of the eldest gods shall reach 16 against all the odds, and see the world in endless sleep. The hero's soul cursed blade shall reap. A single choice shall end his days, Olympus to preserve or raze. Raze, R-A-Z-E, which means destroy completely. We also established in front of the whole camp that there is an op. There is an imposter among us, and they yield the mark of Kronos, which is like a scythe necklace. Chapter 4. I put, oh girl, let me read this a little bit, because there was a lot going on in chapter 4. So Percy is having a dream, and he's dreaming about Rachel, and he's seeing Rachel have one of her seer downloads. That's the best way I can explain it. And she had drew a bunch of stuff regarding the Empire State Building or Olympus, and she was writing stuff in the sand like Percy's name but in ancient Greek, and it was established later in the book that she was hearing and seeing and writing these things down in ancient Greek, and she was trying to figure out what it meant. And she had also started writing or drawing paintings of Luke, how he looked like when he was a kid, and Wait, hold on, girl. Not me. Accidentally erased everything. Wait, y'all. It just like all disappeared. I don't know what that was about. That scared me. It's back. It's back. And it's established that Rachel seer abilities extend to dreams, and she's seeing Olympus and drawing it through artwork, and her dad is trying to hook her up with a therapist. But she understands who she is more because she met Percy, and I guess her family is aware of her abilities to an extent, but they don't understand. So they're probably thinking she's like having episodes and is schizophrenic or whatever. Like that's kind of what it's establishing, and they're trying to hook her up with a therapist, but she don't need all that. And she's like, I do not require those things. In my mind, I know that Rachel and Percy are around the same age, or they are the same age or in the same grade or whatever. But Rachel's character feels so mature to me. When and I don't know if they're writing her character up to be feeling like she has to grow up or mature earlier for her age because of how her family dynamics are set up, because she's like in this penthouse and her family has money, and so she's able to have this big room and just paint all day and, you know, be a kid or whatever. But every time I imagined her as like some 20-year-old with like overalls and like a messy bun and all that. And so when I would read her and Percy's interactions, she would still be a kid in my mind, but I would still feel that... Am I explaining this correct? When I would see her and Percy, like, she just felt older than Percy was. Even though they're the same age, how she was depicted was like an older soul. And maybe that was on purpose because of what we find out later. But this is what I wrote down. When we had gotten to this chapter, I was like, Rachel is high-key giving unhinged, because why does she got a picture that she drew a Percy and she's throwing darts at the picture that she has a Percy? Because I don't know if at this point, like, he had to leave to go to Camp Half-Blood and hadn't gotten back to her about whether or not he was going on this vacation. It got her that mad to where she was throwing darts at his face. But I was like, I was side-eyeing her here. She made up for it. I wasn't doing too much on her because she was a kid. But like I said, how my brain just pictured her when I was reading the book, it was giving like an older vibe. But I was like, girl, that's kind of weird. I mean, I guess for some people, do what you gotta do to get it out. As long as she wasn't actually throwing darts at his face, I guess. But that would be scary behavior. If I'm a parent and I walk in and I see my kid doing that, I'm like, hey, what you got going on? Let's talk it out. Let's sit together and let's hold hands and bow our heads. Like, we find out why Clarice is mad. And it's very dumb. In my mind, it was dumb, but maybe to her, well, I'm not going to say maybe. To her and these other people, it held more weight. So this is what happened. This is the story that was told. There was some flying chariot that was captured in a raid, and it was seized by the Apollo cabin, but it was used by the Ares cabin, and they were going tit for tat over it. This is what I put. I said, 2 demigods can't be alone in the same cabin rule. It was created after Beckendorf and Selena started dating. So I was like, girl, what was y'all doing to make it where everybody, after years and years and decades of demigods cohabitating within Camp Half-Blood for eons, the rule, like, it had to have been so insane for the rule to just now be created because of y'all. I'm just saying, because Camp Half-Blood been here for a long time, and I know y'all was not the first. Moving on. And then Percy was explaining God DNA. And look, I never thought about this reading the book at all until it was mentioned. He was like, yeah, it could be kind of weird. The campers dating each other because technically, like, all of our parents are related. God DNA, you know, I knew that. You know, like the Greek gods, all of them were like brothers and sisters and cousins or whatever. I didn't consider that with demigods, though, until Percy mentioned it. And he was saying, but it's different as long as it's like not your own parent, but it's like we can date each other, like crisscross, like an Apollo kid and a Aries kid can date, but an Aries and an Aries can't, because that's weird. And I was like, okay, thank you for clarifying. I will pass the message along. Because he was clarifying very deep, like, hey, it's not incest, that me and Annabeth kind of got a thing going on in the back of his mind. Grover, he was getting mail, but he was nowhere to be found. So it's kind of established a little bit that Grover is missing. And I'm rereading some of the notes that I wrote, and I forgot that Grover was missing, because boy, did he do his big one by the end of this book. But Percy was kind of saying their empathy link was feeling weaker. It wasn't completely gone. It was just like, he doesn't know where Grover is. He feels that he's still alive, but it's just not as strong as it used to be. And we found out that Grover was essentially, in my mind, was just preaching the gospel. Like he was traveling from state to state, city to city, just talking about, like, spreading the word about what happened to Pan. And how everybody has to join together to protect the wild and stand up and all that. It was established that Annabeth and Percy have been fighting a little bit. And this is because of Rachel. And I'm going to get into it at one part of this video. I'm going to get into it, y'all. I'm going to get into it. But Percy does tell Annabeth begrudgingly about the dreams that he's been having about Rachel. And Annabeth is kind of like, what does that got to do with me? She's kind of like, oh, I thought, like, oh, that's not, like, you're having dreams about her. But Rachel is very important to the story as well. But Annabeth does call Percy a coward in this chapter. And then Percy was kind of like, I had a feeling this didn't have to do with XYZ, but had to do with whatever. But then it, like, switched up really fast. And she was kind of just like, well, if you don't care about us, you can just go on that vacation with Rachel. And I'm going to actually get into it right now. I did not like how Annabeth was on Rachel's neck this whole entire book when Rachel actually did nothing to her. I can understand to a degree having a bit of jealousy because you don't want your man to get, like, swooped up by this random girl who very much could, I guess, or like who Percy like kind of likes, because he did like Rachel, just not as much as he's liked Annabeth. But Annabeth, like me, doesn't see it that way, so it's just like, oh, like, you will not be liking anybody else. But also, it was, side note, it's kind of like, if you start liking somebody else, I'm gonna just drop it. It's kind of like, okay, that's your prerogative, that's your business, and my business is to carry forth in self-love and all that. But the way that Annabeth was this book, I did not like it just was not a good look for her character, because I like her character so much and I relate to her with how her mind is, for as like wisdom and calculating certain things and wanting the best possible outcomes. But every time that Annabeth I hope when they do the series that, I know they have to incorporate it some type of way, but I just didn't like it, and I hope they write it in a way to where, like, they can let people know, like, okay, she don't like Rachel, she's not rocking with her because, like, she's feeling a little bit of pressure from her, but in a way that doesn't give you, like, the ick. Like, I would just be like, oh, Annabeth, like, girl, please. He likes you, okay? Like, Percy likes you. He, like, the long way. But I digress. I get it, because they're kids. They're kids. I gotta remember they're kids. They're kids, okay? Mind you, everybody's 15. Chapter 5. Juniper, Nico, and overweight satyr. I think it's Linus. Linus? Something like that. I didn't write it down. It's just from my memory and how I was pronouncing it. They're chatting about the prophecy, and Nico and Percy are talking, and Percy is saying, you can't change a prophecy. A prophecy is a prophecy. And then Nico's like, yeah, that's true, bro. But you can fight it. And here is a plan. Juniper is crying really bad, and this Linus guy hates Grover's guts, and he is a member of the the clothing council, and he's another person that's just on another person's neck real bad, just on Grover real bad, just like, we hate you, da 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 da, all these reasons that, whatever. I don't feel like getting into it. Linus, he wasn't a cool character to me to get into it that much. I'm just being honest. Mrs. O'Leary, the dog, was also there. Percy and Nico was chatting about the prophecy and finding it to help Percy have a cutting edge. But we don't know what that means yet. But he suggests to Percy to shadow travel and find out about Luke's past. And that makes him remember Rachel and the dream that he had about Rachel and the drawings. Because he's like, how would Rachel know what Luke looked like? And how would Rachel know this? And how would Rachel know that? Chapter 6. Nico and Percy visit Luke's mom, May Castilian. And we find out that there's levels to being a seer. And Luke's mom was a great one, to the point where she was offered a task, which I put right here. I'm assuming that's what made her lose a few screws. It's established in this chapter that she would kind of go in and out of consciousness and have these green glowing eyes. And she would start saying things, like mumbling things, and then she would go back to how she was, and then she would be baking cookies and making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and Kool-Aid and all these things that Luke liked. And it was like her house was described to have, you know, teddy bears outside and these little plushies just all around the place, and she would be like, oh, Luke, my son, you came back. But it's Luke and Nico. We do find out that Luke, and when she snaps out of it for a split second, she says that Luke came back after a certain time and asked, or maybe it was Ermi, somebody, we find out that Luke came back to his mother's house to ask her for a blessing of some sort. And Percy and Nico, after they figured that information out, they go and visit Sally and Paul. And Paul is very cool about the whole demigod thing. And I'm actually so glad that Paul was a real one. Because I know in one of the videos I said I hope he's real and not like a plan of Kronos to figure out what Percy and Sally got going on. But he was a real one. He was very down with everything going on. And just very in love with Sally and very in love with Percy and willing and just like a ride or die. So he's also a real one. I hope they build his character up as well. Because in the books they didn't really do that. Percy goes to Sally and is needing to ask her for a blessing to do something. At this point, I still don't think it's established what the blessing is needed for, but I'll get into it. And Sally is very apprehensive to it. And she's like, my son, though, like, you're my son, you're my baby boy. Like, you're my baby boy. Like, I can't lose you, da-da-da, whatever. And, it's not da-da-da, whatever, but I'm just trying to move with the story along. And Paul kind of senses what's going on, and he's kind of like, well, Percy is mature, and we understand. Like, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but something along the lines of like Percy being a good kid and being notable in the things that he does, and that he thinks that Sally should let him do what he needs to do. And after that, after Paul kind of convinces her a little bit, she gives Percy her blessing, and we move on to chapter 7. Nico and Percy take a detour to the underworld, but they have to enchant the earth with music because they're trying to find a shortcut to get there instead of going all the way back to, what was it, like Las Vegas. They open a portal essentially by finding Grover. So they find Grover in the midst of the forest somehow because Percy is really tapping into his empathy link. He's like, Grover, coming in, Grover, speak over. And they locate him, or they locate Grover, and he's been asleep for a really long time. Encounters this god, Morpheus, who, as he walks by Grover, puts him into a deep sleep. Grover thought he was asleep for like a couple of hours, and Percy's like, man, it's been days. He's like, what? And then everybody's like, why didn't the nature spirits try to wake you? He's like, well, to them, like, time, like 2 months is nothing to them. So that's why. Later in this chapter, we find out Nico tricked Percy for information about his family. So basically, they get into the underworld, and Nico's like, first we gotta do this. Hades wanted to speak to Percy. Really, Hades wanted to entrap Percy, but Nico didn't know this. He was wanting to know about his mom, which I understand, I get. Like, Nico wanted to know about his mom, what happened, how they end up there, whatever. We find out that the lawyer that rescued them meaning Bianca and Nico, was a Fury, which is just one of Hades's, what do you call it? Like, allies. Allies, I suppose. Chapter 8. Oh, never mind. We're still in chapter 7. And Percy was trapped by Hades because Hades wanted his son to be the one in the prophecy. He was kind of like, Hades was just giving a speech on, I want glory for my realm, and the gods of Olympus have outcasted me, and I want to show them, I want to show my family that you can't treat my kids like this, you can't treat me like this, and I want one of my kin to be the one to save their behinds. So they all have to acknowledge us, essentially. And Percy is trapped in this, like, cell. We get into chapter 8, and Nico tried to rescue Percy, and Percy is really mad because he's like, you tricked me, and you knew that you wanted to drag me down here so that Hades could do whatever. And then Nico's like, I didn't know he was going to do all that. Like, I just wanted answers. Like, he just said he wanted to talk to you. I didn't know he was going to want to, like, imprison you. I'm here to rescue you, whatever. The plan by Nico to Percy was for Percy to bathe in the river Styx to gain a form of, I would say, impenetrableness and protection in battle, the same as Achilles, to absorb the mortal strength of the greatest hero, which in this book was established as Achilles, to basically become invincible. And so Percy, they go through this trial, but eventually they get to the river Styx, and Percy fully bathes in it, submerges his body, and he says it feels like pins and needles and burning and suffering and all that, whatever. And he was instructed to focus on a point of his body, or a point that grounds him to being immortal, and to pick a part of his body that would be his weak spot, basically. Like how Achilles' weak spot was his heel. He was picking a part of his body. He picked his back, and he was struggling to, like, get out of the river. But then he was envisioning his whole life. He was envisioning his mom, envisioning Paul, envisioning Grover and Rachel and Camp. None of that was getting him out. Like, none of that was really, like, grounding him. But want to know what does save him? The idea of Annabeth saves him, and he's envisioning Annabeth pulling him out of the river. And he looks around kind of gasping and shocked, because he's like, I just saw Annabeth, and it was as real as you. It was as real as my hand in front of me. But she's not in the underworld with us right now. We get to chapter 9. Hestia showed Percy a glimpse vision, and it okay. Hestia was basically telling Percy, which she's the goddess of hearth and fire, like warmth and all that good and fun stuff. She was talking to Percy, and she was telling him, to understand Luke, you must understand his family. And because that was coming up at this point of the book, and I kind of caught on earlier than I think the author intended, was that family wasn't necessarily May Castilian. Like, sure, that could have helped, but his chosen family. Like, to understand Luke, you have to understand Annabeth. You have to understand Thal. Hermes said that if anyone could have saved him, it was Annabeth, and he was in deep pain over it. And Percy tells Annabeth about the river Styx just a little bit. And I put just a little bit in quotation marks because Annabeth, you know, she rubbed two brain cells together and was like, did you bathe in the river Styx? She was like, something is just different about you. Like, did you jump in that river? And he was like, just a little bit. And y'all, the how I hooted. I was like, just a little bit. Like, that part kind of did make me giggle when it shouldn't have. And I also know that Hermes was also, I didn't write this down, but he was kind of doing too much on Annabeth. He was like, if anybody could save him, it was you, and you didn't do, like, you had the opportunity to do it and you didn't do it, and gar, 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 gar. And it's kind of like, at the end of the book, we find out, spoilers, we find out that Hermes knew the whole time what Luke's fate was. And so it was like, there was no reason for you to be so angry in Annabeth's face. We also understand that, you know, certain things could lead to certain outcomes. So maybe he thought like, oh, if I lash out at her, maybe that'll make her try harder. But it's just like, there's no reason for you to do that, because it didn't matter what you would have done or didn't do. Besides the golden rule of you can't directly interfere with human choices, it still would have occurred the way that you've seen it, because you knew what Luke's fate was. So anyways, next, Athena sent a message to Annabeth about Plan 23, and that essentially meant like, oh, Athena is thinking that this is going to be like this battle, the demigods holding the fort down, is going to be a lot worse than they initially thought. It's going to get bad. And also, she told Percy again, stay away from my daughter. And that they will be holding down Manhattan all by themselves. The gods will not be helping. It's kind of like, toodles, we will not be of service. Chapter 10. Percy was allotting tasks. He was like, you go here, you go to this bridge, you go to this tunnel. And boom, the Hunters of Artemis show up. Ah, Thalia! I'm so glad we've seen her again. I'm so glad we've seen her again. I know in one of the other recountings, I was saying, I hope we see Thalia. It felt like the ends of a little story, but I was like, I hope we see her again, and we do. I was like, Thalia, yes. Annabeth is once again looking over Daedalus' plans with the automatron statues among the city. And this is Plan 23. So essentially, Daedalus, I caught it this time, had a plan, Plan 23, which was activate all the statues around New York City, and they will begin to move like giants and help do whatever you want them to do. You just activate them and tell them what you want them to do, and they'll do it. And that's what they did. Percy is trying to figure out, how do we hold down these lakes? How do we hold down these weak spots? And he spends the sand dollar that Poseidon gave him for his birthday. I believe it was in the last book. He was like, you'll know how to spend it. Or maybe it was in the beginning of this book. Either the beginning of this book or the end of the last book. A sand dollar, he breaks it in half. He gives it to these two river spirits. And they make peace. And they drown some of Kronos' goons. With the promise that we would clear up the pollution, or I have sway with the gods, or Poseidon. I'll put in a word for him. Ha. Because at first they were mad at Percy. But then they was like, he can help us. We down. Chapter 11. We're fighting the Minotaur and snake women and all that. And Percy is feeling frisky at one point. I don't like saying frisky. Sorry, that's the wrong word. But he's wanting to test his luck a little bit. And he straight up asks Annabeth, because they're about to get into the fighting bag, or maybe they're already in their fighting bag at this point. And he says, can I get a kiss for good luck? And y'all, I don't know what it is. Like, these Percabeth moments in the book, I know I'm supposed to eat them up, but sometimes they just come so out of the blue that, like, I'm so locked into the action that when stuff like that happens, it feels misplaced. And I was kind of like, Percy, take a shot every time I say like. I giggled thinking about but upon my first my first reaction, I was like, sure. You was getting kisses from Rachel, and now it makes you feel like, anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. I'm rooting for Percy death, but I was just like, at random, Annabeth gets stabbed by Ethan, whoever that is, because Ethan's just, we've been fighting Ethan since the labyrinth. After Annabeth got stabbed to the degree that she did, to where they were like, we need a healer of Apollo, and when the healer of Apollo came, he used all his strength and had to take a nap immediately. I'm knowing he wished so bad. Percy was like, oh, I should have killed you in the labyrinth. Oh, you should have died, because not you touching my baby girl. Like, not you laying a hand and stabbing Annabeth to this degree. And Annabeth kind of took that bullet for Percy, because that, where Annabeth was standing, it was in the same area as his Achilles heel, essentially, like his weak spot. So if he would have got stabbed in his lower back, or wherever it was, wherever Ethan was planning on attacking, he would have died. He would have died. Michael, he tells Percy, the bridge is breaking already. Break the bridge, because him and Percy and Kronos are fighting. And so he does. And we move on to chapter 12. Percy visits Annabeth and she gets better. She tells him the story about how Luke visited her and told her everything. So Luke did visit Annabeth and told Annabeth his plans on basically letting Kronos possess his body. And she didn't say nothing. Annabeth is getting hard. It's getting really difficult for me to root for you at times. I do like Annabeth though. Like, it's just these little, we're gonna get into it. Because later in the book, she said that I'll get into it when we get there. Percy told Annabeth about his spot, because he was like, if I can't trust Annabeth, who can I trust? And I was like, okay, real yearner. I probably would have done the same thing. I feel like it's good to have somebody you trust to that degree, your life, essentially. Grover gave a report about a lot of nature spirits and satyrs dying, and Thalia gave a report about the god or Titan that they saw. And they were like, oh, that's Typhon. Don't mind him. He's just one of the most powerful Titans. Whatever. We also talk about this spy again. There's a spy, an imposter among us, but we can't worry about them. We got to worry about ourselves. We got to worry about our grind. We got to do what we got to do. We can't check everybody, frisk everybody down to find out who's the imposter among us. We just got to fight. Percy dreams about Nico again, trying to summon his mother, Maria. And Bianca's like, look, this is the one thing I forbade you to do. You shall not look for the truth. Like, this is the one thing that, like, Bianca was really trying to stand in the gap so Nico wouldn't see the truth, because she believed that he would hold a grudge, because that was a child of Hades's fatal flaw. I guess all of their fatal flaws, like, just looped in one. They don't get to jump around like, oh, I'm a child of Hades, but my fatal flaw can't be pride. My fatal flaw can't be wanting the good for others. Like, Percy, my fatal flaw can't be wanting to do anything for a friend. It gotta be holding a grudge. Everybody. But he sees what happens. He sees the truth. The story is, Maria was a woman of great confidence. Maria was a baddie. Like, she was carrying herself like a baddie. But Hades was trying to tell her, hey, we need to protect the children, because this is what happened. Like, after the pact was made between the big three, Zeus enacted some sort of law or a truce or like a treaty, something, and was saying, hey, all children after a certain point have to be turned in. If they're not, oh, y'all are getting zapped to smithereens. But Maria wasn't going for that, and neither was Hades. And Hades was like, okay, well, they could stay in the underworld with me. And she's like, we will not be staying in the underworld. Like, she wasn't going for that. He was like, please, Maria, like, he's gonna get you. He's gonna get you if you don't. And she's like, well, you'll just protect me. And Hades is kind of like, he's like, I think in the back of his mind, he's like, I can't really though. Like, it's not Zeus. Like, that's my brother. Like, I could try. Boom, it's too late. And Maria gets smoked to dust. And Hades saves Bianca and Nico just in time. He tells one of the Furies to wipe their memory of the occurrence happening and to take them somewhere where they could be safe, which is the Lotus Hotel, we find out. And Hades is just mad and finding somebody to blame. And he takes it out on the Oracle Delphi. Is that Delphi at the time? Because it was like Electo was the... Is Electo one of the Furies? I think so. Delphi was kind of like, I told you so. Well, she didn't say it like that, but she was like, I told you this would happen if you didn't put them to safety before this deadline. And then Hades was not trying to hear all that. He wasn't trying to hear that he was wrong. And he was trying to put it like, oh, you're the reason why this happened. And it was kind of giving like a we don't talk about Bruno moment. And it's like, okay, Bruno was not the reason why these things were happening. He was just seeing that they were going to happen. And y'all was the one who was putting it on him like he was like God or something. Like he can't, like Delphi... Those in the prophecy realm, they can't control what they see. They only see it. And so if they warn you about something that could possibly shift an outcome and you don't do it, whose fault is that really? And so I didn't like how Hades cursed Delphi for that, because it wasn't her fault, but he was like, you're the reason this happened. It's not though. Like, it's not. Like, I will ride for Bruno at dawn. Like, that's not how prophecies work. I hope this helps. Percy has a dream about Rachel knowing that him in New York is in danger and makes a deal with her father to go to some ladies' academy if they leave. So Rachel is kind of like, Percy's in danger. I know he's in danger. Please, like, we got to leave our vacation and go back to New York. And her parents are kind of like, we just got here. And she's like, we have enough money. We got to go back. We got to go back. And we go back. Like, I'll go to the ladies' academy. I'll go to the bad kids' school. Whatever. I just need to see Percy. Okay, we'll have it arranged. Chapter 13. Prometheus arrives to Manhattan and Percy tries to stand his ground. But they're not trying to fight. Prometheus is here to tempt. He's here to get into Percy's ear. But also, like, he's trying to play like the good cop. Like, Kronos is the bad cop and then Prometheus is trying to play the good cop. Like, hey, like, you should join our side because I also have prophecy and I picked this side because whatever, trying to manipulate everybody. They're trying to play. He disclosed to Percy, you know, his ability to foresee the future, and he showed Percy the full vision of everything that happened with Luke, that his mother saw Luke's future, and that's kind of what drove her mad. Like, not my son, not my baby, not my baby. If y'all ever played the game, what is it called? Or watched a playthrough of The Quarry. The Quarry, where that lady character at the end, she's like, not my Kaylee, not my Kaylee!
No, not my granddaughter. Not my only granddaughter, not my Kaylee, not my little Kaylee, not my little Kaylee, not my little...
Like, that's how I was reading it in my mind. Prometheus agrees about the gods, like, okay, they do be not treating their kids good and how they could do these terrible things, do nothing. And then he was talking about how Hermes left Luke, like, just piling it on, like, yeah, the gods do have kids and they just don't claim them, and Hermes left Luke, and this is why you should join us because they don't care, and da-da-da. And how certain entities were punished for things they didn't do just because of how they connected with. He was like Calypso. You know Calypso? The girl that you almost left this whole world behind for? Like, yeah, she was punished and she didn't do anything only because she was a child of who held the world on his back. And Percy was thinking about it, but he was also thinking about how he hated Kronos more. He was like, this is all true. You're raising good points. I hate Kronos more. But to end all this off with a gift, a little bow on top, Prometheus gives Percy a literal gift, and it is, drumroll please, Pandora's box. But we also know that Pandora's box isn't actually a box, it's a pithos, which is like a Greek jar. but it doesn't roll off the tongue as well. Chapter 14. Thalia and Percy talk about the vision that Prometheus showed Percy and saw, and recounted some of the events and disclosed how Annabeth was so young. Thalia was talking to Percy like heart to heart. And she was saying like, oh yeah, I remember that. But Annabeth is so young. She has a soft spot for Luke. She's like, I don't know more. I don't know who that clown is. But Annabeth, all she knows is that Luke's parents hurt him. So she's going to be defensive about Luke, period. Percy has a dream about May trying to be the host for the Oracle. So he's kind of seeing the past a little bit on his own accord. And no one's necessarily showing it to him. Just how demigod dreams work. And basically, because of the curse that Hades did, it rejected her. Because she had such this great seer ability, she wanted to try to be the host for the spirit of Delphi, but it didn't work. And Hermes also felt really bad about that happening. I think this is a dream. And at this point, I also clocked, I think earlier than they wanted us to. But Ethan started speculating that Luke was fighting Kronos inside of his own body. And we didn't know what that meant, but oh girl, we find out. Because every now and then Luke would peep out for a second, and then Kronos, and every time, okay, I have a question. When y'all was reading Kronos' voice, how was y'all reading it? Because when I was reading it, I was reading Kronos' voice like this in my mind. A lot of hissing and deep darkness. Like, that's how I was reading Kronos' voice to my brain. And he was basically telling Ethan, don't spew those lies or I'll cut your tongue out your mouth. And I was like, really dramatic, but sure. For an evil villain, sure. A big fight is going on. But like every chapter of this book is a big fight. And a flying pig called a sow is one of their first huge battles that they go through. I think this chapter was called When Pigs Fly. Chapter 15. The party ponies of Chiron come up. And I don't know why. The party ponies annoy me. I don't really like the party ponies. I don't know if it's associated with like because like frat boy culture and they was kind of making it like that. But I wouldn't miss them if we don't see it in hopefully the TV show adaptation. Percy talks to Annabeth about the visions he got from Hestia and Prometheus. And sees his parents, Paul and Sally, in the car. And he sees Pandora's box in the back seat. He's like, how did it get here? I remember. Y'all, okay, pivot. This is actually the next day because my camera died. I know I was in chapter 15 recounting the Last Olympian. I charged my camera and then I fell asleep. And when I woke up, because my sleep schedule is off right now. When I woke up, it was too late. Or too late to where I didn't want to come back outside. So now it's the next day. I was just letting y'all know because the outfit changed. As we continue, I remember saying I didn't like the party ponies. I remember Percy talking to Annabeth about his visions he got from Hestia and Prometheus and his parents, Paul and Sally. Pandora's box shows up the time where your week is Tempu. Okay. That's what I was talking about. He was saying, thinking in his mind, like, I gave that to Thalia to lock up in a box. Why is it now in my parents' backseat? And as this is going on, there's like this helicopter or something flying in the air. And it's Rachel, Dare Enterprises, because she got the munyon like that. Or her family does. And so they was able to get that together. Chapter 16. Annabeth saves Rachel's life. And I like Annabeth, but it was just difficult for me to get through this book because I like Rachel. Obviously not as much as Annabeth. But she was just being really nasty towards Rachel. And I don't know, like I said, if there was just gaps in my memory of how things were in this chapter. But this is how it was. So the pilot falls asleep, but somehow the mass spell that Morpheus and Kronos did over Manhattan didn't affect Rachel, but it affected the pilot. So once they reached a certain point, the pilot wasn't piloting no more. And so they was spiraling down, and I think Percy called Blackjack to rescue Rachel, but then there was some type of discrepancy that happened there. So Annabeth got in the pilot's seat and landed them to safety, and then everyone was like, whoa, we didn't know that you could fly a helicopter. And she was like, neither did I, but my dad was super into aviation, and then I've been reading Daedalus's notes, and so I just took a gander and I landed the plane. And honestly, Annabeth's confidence is everything, because it reminded me of that thing that was going around a couple of years ago that was like, could you land an airplane if it were going down? And a lot of people were saying yes. And in my mind, I was like, I feel like I really could, but girl, looking at that panel and all those 50 million buttons that's up there, I don't know. It would have to be like divine intervention, honestly, to just be like, okay, doop, boop, 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 and then like that's how they be showing it in the TV shows. And they're like flipping all these switches and doing whatever. And Percy, he was trying to calm it down because his love interests are kind of, well, it's really just Annabeth. Rachel really wasn't dishing it back out, but if they write it in the show that Rachel was dishing it back out, I wouldn't be that mad initially, but we aren't going to be doing that to Leah Jeffries. Thank you. But Annabeth walks away. And Rachel, she has her face in her hands. She's like, I'm so sorry. I messed everything up. And then Percy in his mind was like, I can't really protest that. But when I was reading this, I was like, what did Rachel do previously for Percy? Because I understand this isn't the best time for her to show up, but she had to give him a very important message. Like, Rachel was a part of this prophecy in a way as well, where he didn't try to make her feel better, for lack of better words. He's not obliged to say, oh, it's not your fault. He's not obliged to be like it's okay or whatever, but it may be like, hey, don't be so hard on yourself. Like one of those. Don't be so hard on yourself. Because she came here for a reason. It wasn't like she was just missing Percy real bad. She was having visions in the night and dreams that she felt the urge and the pull. I need to go. Like, Percy's in trouble and I have these messages to tell him. And so when Percy had said that, I was like, what has she done beforehand? Maybe I just missed it. She could have, Oh, she tells Percy, you are not the hero. And this is important for you to know because it'll impact your decisions. And I ate this part up. I really did. Because at this point, now he's kind of in his feelings because he's made every decision up to this point with the idea that he was the hero. But as we know, prophecies differentiate. They mean one thing, but that one thing could be representative of 50 different outcomes. And so when we talk and think about like, oh, the hero that saves Olympus, we're thinking that's the same entity that makes the choice, and it's not. And so a Draken gets released, and this is a very ancient type of dragon. Very powerful, serpent-like, the whole 9 yards. And everybody is kind of like, we can push back this Draken, but we're not going to be able to defeat it on our own. And Rachel kind of gives everybody hope, slightly. She tells Percy and the Annabeth gang, I seen it. I foresaw the Draken, but it will be taken out by an Ares cabin member. And everyone's like, girl, shut up. Like, get out my face, because the Ares cabin members haven't even been here to help us. In a previous chapter, I believe Selena had went to try to convince Clarice to fight in the battle because she withdrew the entire Aries cabin. And she was also in the mindset of, if Clarice will listen to anybody about this, it will be me, with the idea that she essentially was the bridge between her and Chris getting together. And Clarice loved Chris Rodriguez real bad. But everyone's fighting against the Draken. And then when Rachel was saying that, like I said, no one was believing her. And then Annabeth was like, well, how does she know? How does she know? Understandable. Boom. The Aries kids show up and fight it. And it's led by Clarice. And everyone's like, yeah, get it, girl. Get it, get it, get it. And then Percy's kind of like, this person looks like Clarice, but she got blue eyes. And the last time I checked, Clarice don't got blue eyes. And the Draken overtakes this girl to death. And she falls from a high distance due to the poison that was over her. It was kind of depicted like her skin was peeling. Her arms were cut off. Her legs were cut off. That vibe. And they all, I guess, gather to where she is. Mrs. O'Leary is getting in the midst of it. And I'm like, Mrs. O'Leary, please do not get hurt. Please do not get hurt. We look and see who is in Clarice's armor. And it was Selena. And Selena dies. And she's looking up in the sky. And she's crying really bad. Well, everybody's kind of crying. And they're like, no. And then Clarice sees this. And she's like, how dare you, like, wear my armor and do this and da-da-da-da. And Selena was kind of like, well, the Aries cabin would only listen to you. And you weren't budging. And I know we needed to come and help fight. Ooh, cat-like reflexes. I know we needed... She was like, I know we needed to come fight. And so I just kind of did what anybody would do. And Clarice was like, oh, you dumb girl. But like in a loving way. Like, we'll avenge you. And like, this lights a fire under Clarice's behind. And she actually kills the Draken. And Clarice enters a flow state to the point where everybody who was a part of Camp Half-Blood, they was looking at her and they were like, oh, she's untouchable. We're seeing this red aura around her. Oh, it's the blessing of Aries. I've never seen it in the flesh before type beat. And I started crying reading the book. Selena sacrificing herself in a way. And her, you know, she's like, or what's her man's name? Charlie. I need to see Charlie, like another sad death. But once we got to chapter 17, I dried my tears so fast. And everybody, like, in my mind, naturally I'm forgiving, but everybody forgave her a little bit too quick. Because lo and behold, she was the spy. And in the previous chapter, it was depicted that Kronos chose the Draken to fight Camp Half-Blood warriors at this point because they were under the assumption, through the words of the spy, mind you, that they wouldn't be able to defeat the Draken because of everything that was going on. So that would mean the person in camp notified Kronos that the Aries cabin withdrew, and maybe this is a particular beast that an Aries kid has leverage over. I'm not really sure. They didn't get into it specifically. I got ahead of myself for chapter 16, but Selena's dying and she is kind of like, I liked Luke. He was so charming and handsome, and I chose to be a spy because I liked him, and he promised that Charlie wouldn't get hurt, but Luke lied. And she's like, see Charlie. And then everything fades to black. And she said for everybody to forgive her, and they just brushed the dirt off of their feet and they said, she died a hero. We're not going to mention that she was a spy. And I remember that later in the book, one of the Stoll brothers was kind of like, oh, I heard that. And then Percy was like, she died a hero. And it's kind of like, I guess, because at the end, like, she chose to do the right thing. But a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the issues that we faced was because of you. And Charlie Ben got hurt, and you is still feeding Kronos information thereafter. I don't know. I could understand the arc of Clarice really, like, everybody seeing Selena as, you know, a good friend and wanting that hero ending for her. But it's kind of like, you did a lot of dirt. I guess that's their decision. It's kind of like, I'm not mad at what they did. It's just kind of, I would like everybody to kind of talk about it. Like, oh man, that was real crazy what she did. Yeah, girl, that was crazy what she did. But Annabeth, again, I was shaking my head at her this whole book. I get it, because Thalia, she laid down the foundation. She was saying that she's very defensive towards Luke because yada, yada, yada. Annabeth and Percy was in the elevator to get to Olympus in the Empire State Building. And she was talking to Percy kind of passive-aggressive. And I'm still, like, I don't know if I missed it genuinely. And I understand that Rachel is a part of it. But why were they fighting in the beginning? Reading comprehension skills need improvement, I suppose, for this in particular. But when she was talking to Percy in the elevator and she was like, I didn't believe you about Luke until I saw how he used Selena. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. No, I hope you're happy. I'm sorry, why did I do that? Sure, Annabeth, but at the same time, you said you didn't believe Percy until you saw what he did to Selena. And basically what he did to Selena was trick her into working for Kronos. But you didn't see it when he tricked you into holding up the sky? Maybe not. Sometimes some people gotta bump their head a couple of times about people they love. And then this isn't on Percy. I can understand Annabeth being upset towards Percy when she has this hope that Luke would not betray her when that was like her brother. I can understand that, but the anger there is misdirected. Because Percy was like, I'm not happy. Like, this doesn't make me happy. Someone had pointed out that in the Lightning Thief prophecy, the Oracle was saying, you know, to Percy, you'll be betrayed by someone who calls you a friend. Something like that. And so Luke genuinely saw Percy as a friend. Still betrayed him, though. And Annabeth and Camp and all that. But it was kind of like, in the moment that we're at, in the time, with everything going on, this is just not the time. I am glad that she got it out, I guess, because it would just come up in a different way, assuming that it does. But Percy was kind of like, no, like, it doesn't make me happy. Obviously, like, we would want Luke to sit by the campfire with us in Kumbaya, but that's not what's happening, and that's not what has happened. They reach Olympus, and they see Hestia, and Rachel is there, and everybody's kind of like, hey girl, what you doing? Everybody's staring at the fire, and Rachel tells Percy that she knows, like, this is kind of you know, bittersweet for their friendship, I suppose. Well, not really, because they're still friends, just it will not progress. And I would say that's bittersweet for Rachel, good for the rest of us, good for Annabeth, good for Percy. But she was saying she knows their fates aren't intertwined, but that she understands why she was drawn to him. And she was saying, I was drawn to you because you opened the door for me to all of this. You know, talking about Olympus and understanding who she is and all that. And Hestia told her that if she wants to follow this path, that she has to give up all distractions. And Percy's like, oh, so now I'm a distraction. Like, Percy is actually getting offended. And he was saying, in the back of his, he was saying, like, I felt like I was getting dumped, even though we was not together. And it's kind of like, okay, Percy, I understand that. I'm on your neck, too. It's not just Annabeth. I'm on everybody's neck, actually. I was on Rachel's neck for throwing darts at you. Now I'm on your neck. I can understand you feeling upset, but y'all are still friends. So it's kind of like, was you feeling her a little bit more than we thought? Y'all was kissing up in that car, kissing up in that Prius, or you was letting her kiss you. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit too much. It's a little bit too much. That's why you didn't want to be telling Annabeth, because she was kissing him. And so that's why it was hurting that bad. Because at the end of the book, at the end of the book, we understand that, you know, they're going to see, it's implied that Rachel is going to see them again and talk with them. And Annabeth is happy because that means that Rachel can't date nobody because of what happens at the end. So it's kind of like, you wanted that door to be open still, Perseus, Peter Johnson, and I see you. He's allowed to do that. This just jokes, commentary. Percy gives Pandora's box to Hestia, the last Olympian, as an offering because hope survives best at the hearth. And she is honored by this because earlier in the book she was saying everybody forgets about her. And that's kind of the running theme. In this book and the last couple of books, people just forgetting about the gods forgetting about people. Back and forth, blase, blase. Chapter 18. Kronos isolates the mist, so Manhattan wakes up. Besides the small patch of earth where the Empire State Building is. Sally and Paul start fighting Dracne. I think that's how you pronounce it. Take a shot every time I say I think that's how you pronounce it. And Paul is cool. Like, Paul's real cool about it. And he's like, I took a sword fighting in my Shakespearean art class. Or play or something. He has a little bit of lore to him. But that's all that we get to know for now. Chapter 19. I put Battle of Olympus. Luke fighting Kronos from the inside. It was hypothesized by Ethan. Percy told Annabeth about the possibility of Luke fighting Kronos from the inside. So these three kind of have an idea that could be a possibility. And with everything going on, I understand the gods may have a certain knowledge of things and they can not interfere directly, but they can help or hinder XYZ. And all of them were looking at this prophecy through the lens of what they know. But this is when the twist occurs. Luke stabs himself to separate himself from Kronos, and Kronos' scythe melted into a pile of metal. So Percy, he had to make the choice to trust whether or not Luke was telling the truth. Give me the dagger. And the dagger was deemed cursed because he broke his promise to Thalia and Annabeth when he chose Kronos over them. Even though, like, he was so focused on being hurt by Hermes or the other gods and whatever, it went back to the idea of earlier in the book. Or, no, it was later in the book where Hermes was kind of like, I knew that Luke could do it on his own. But then in my mind, I was thinking, like, just because someone can doesn't mean they want to be faced with those trials. Nobody really wants to be faced with trials. And you can tell by how his character was written that Luke just craved love. And a lot of these characters crave love. And this is not to be a Luke apologist, because I was on his neck as well. Like, just take a deep breath, take a deep breath. As I said in the last video, I like Luke as a villain. As a character, though, yikes. But I do like the fact that in the very end, he was the hero. And that Percy had to make the choice of whether or not Luke got to be the hero. Because Annabeth understood, like, oh, I understand you now. Like, you gotta trust. And I don't think that Percy trusted Luke at all. Like, Percy trusted Luke as far as he could throw him. Or Kronos as far as he could throw him. Percy made that decision because he trusted his friends. He trusted Annabeth. He trusted Rachel saying, Percy, you're not the hero. And me telling you this is going to help impact your decision. You need to know this. And Annabeth having so much hope in Luke. And I do admire that about her. I know I was being hard on her this whole video. But I do like the idea of someone not losing faith in someone, even though you should. Like, even though I should lose faith and hope and all trusting you, I will still have that hope that you will do the right thing or do better. Even if I can't trust you or talk to you or be around you, or can't trust you around my people or anything that you say, I will still hope that deep down you're that person that I knew. And I think that was the wavelength that Annabeth was moving on. And so when Luke was dying, he asked Annabeth if she loved him. And it was kind of like an awkward silence. It was depicted like Annabeth turned red, and then Percy was kind of just standing there, like, you know, looking at them. And she was like, no, you were like a brother to me. Which, I'm not sure if this is a continuity error, but Annabeth did love Luke. I'm assuming in this portion, he was asking, like, did you love me romantically? I don't know. I do think that she had a little crush on him, but not like a, you know, serious thing, because she would be like blushing and stuff and Lightning Thief or Lucia Monster. One of the two, thinking back to Luke. But I don't know if her saying no was a lie. You know, no, I didn't love you. Or just because Percy was there and whatever. But I believe that Annabeth did love or have love for Luke, and maybe it wasn't that particular type of love, but I just think back to what was the Titan's curse, or was it no, the last book. I think back to the last book, and her prophecy or oracle had something to do with losing a love worse than death. And that was attributed to Luke. So she had to love him. I mean, she did like lose him like eventually. And he was remorseful toward her at the end. You know, another please forgive me. I broke my promise to my family. That part was sad. I know it's going to get me real bad. The TD adaptation. Ooh, that's going to get me real bad. Like I said, I do like that Luke was the hero in the end. It was kind of like all y'all gods. Oh, I can't say all of them because some of them knew Luke's fate. But the ones that didn't. And they was kind of like, y'all was just killing everybody because y'all didn't know. But a prophecy's gonna prophecy. Like, that's low-key what happened with Moses and Jesus. Like, a prophecy went around, Now we're getting biblical. But yeah, let me get biblical. Like, a prophecy went around that there was going to be like a savior of the world, a deliverer of the Israelites. And they were not having that at all. And they was killing all the babies. They was killing all of the babies as they were born. But because a prophecy is going to prophecy, like, the baby that was the one to do it lived. And so it's like all of these people who was a child of the big three, like, yes, that was a part of it, but that wasn't the main squeeze. Like, yes, that was an ingredient to the pie, but that wasn't the pie. Yes, Percy made the decision, but there were so many other factors that went into this to where the gaggery of it all. That's all that I gotta say. The gaggery of it all. Chapter 20. Everybody is kumbayaing back at camp. Everybody's having a good, fun, little, silly little mood of a time. The gods gather together and they form their meetings to evaluate all of the heroes involved. Everybody involved in the success of Olympus still standing. Anna gets to be the architect for Olympus. Poseidon gets his praise. Tyson gets his praise and gets upgraded to lead armies of the Cyclops. Grover gets upgraded to a Cloven Elder Council member. Thalia gets her praise from Artemis. You have served me well. And Percy gets a wish. All the gods on the council is like, yeah, you was doing your big one. Thank you so much. You get one wish. And everybody's like, oh, I already know what it'll be. And then Percy is like, oh, you do? He's like, yeah. And everybody's running off at the mouth. And then he's like, if you wish to become a god. Even I was like, huh? Like, I'm thinking in my mind, like, if I was granted this opportunity, what would I wish for? And then Percy's kind of also like, huh? Like, that's not what I want. And so they're all like, what? Like, they're all flabbergasted. Like, their flabbergasted for some odd reason. But they were like, continue. And basically Percy asks for justice for all of the demigods who are unclaimed, for all of the minor gods, and all that. And the gods of Olympus and the goddesses of Olympus were like, we will grant this wish to our best ability if it's in our power to do so. And Percy was like, kind of the reason why we are in this predicament is because y'all was not claiming y'all's kids. Y'all was not acknowledging these gods. And Athena stepped in and agreed with Percy. And she was like, yeah, that was essentially a chink in our armor. Because she was thinking battle strategy. And everybody was kind of on the same page. Everybody was on the same page. Even after Percy Jackson sat on his father's throne to get his attention, he almost got blasted to smithereens. They were all very grateful, thankful, blessed to be in the presence of Grover, Annabeth, Tyson, Percy, Thalia. And you know what? Grover really did his big one. Nico, Bianca, well, Bianca did pass away. But y'all are getting what I'm saying? Like, there were other satyrs in the camp. And a lot of them died trying to look for Pan. But Grover was really that one. Like, can we have a round of applause for Grover? Because it's like, something is so special about you to the point where the demigods, or at least that what we're presented with, the demigods that you went and had to protect, those was the ones, for real. Like, those was the ones. And he got upgraded to be a Cloven Elder Council member. Because Grover was he was pondering in his mind the idea of how he presented himself prior to the war and during the war or the battle, and how he worried for his credibility because he led so many, in quotation marks, nature spirits, dryads, naiads, whatever, into the slaughter, basically, because so many of them died fighting for the good. And he gets to redeem himself in this way, or he gets redeemed in this way, where Dionysus was granting this respect upon him, where you don't have to worry about that anymore, because even though they died, like, they will get resurrected into whatever other nature, spirit, whatever. And while you have this empathy and compassion, now you're placed in a position where they will respect you, or at the very least have a form of respect for you and a love for you. Chapter 21, Percy talks to Hermes about Luke, and we find out that Hermes knew the whole time that Luke was the child of prophecy and didn't do anything. He didn't talk to him because he was forbidden to. And Percy was like, oh, that must have been so hard. I don't know. Hermes, I like that in the show, Hermes is played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Because one thing I am is a Hamilton fan. I like 21 Jump Street. I'm very into musicals, okay? There's a lot of flying going on. There's a lot of, okay, birds, tweaka, tweaka. At the end of chapter 21, Rachel insists to go to the camp. And everyone's like, what? Like, why does she need to go to the camp for? Everyone is confuddled. Chapter 22, they're racing to camp. They're like, oh, like, what's going on? Percy is having these flashbacks to May Castilian, and it's just thinking the worst. Like, he's just going to lose one of his friends in the worst way because she's going to try to become the vessel for the oracle. But we find out in chapter 22, Rachel has the gift of prophecy, and the spirit of Delphi will either give or take. And there is this suspense in the air, because everyone's kind of like, how did she get into the camp? And they're like, girls, she flew. And Rachel was just very accepting of everything going on. She was like, I know I have to try. I had a vision of this. This is my destiny. I believe that the curse of Hades was lifted. Rightfully so, because Hades didn't have any business. Anyways, I'm not getting into that. I'm on his neck as well. He didn't have any business cursing that girl just because he was mad. But the spirits, it took, or did it gave, or did it take? Rachel inherited the spirit of Delphi successfully. And then she went all green-eyed and she spat a prophecy out, and then she went back to normal. She's like, hey, everybody, what happened? I blacked out for a second. And now everybody, like, this prophecy is running in the back of their minds. And it's kind of a really cool thing. And while all of that was happening, we all collectively forgot. And I know this was mentioned in the beginning of the book, that Percy's birthday was coming up. We all forgot. Percy forgot it was his birthday, right? Like, understandably so. Because we're all the hell that y'all been through. I would be surprised if you remembered how to walk. Percy forgot it was his birthday. I forgot Percy's birthday was coming up. But Annabeth gives him, like, this cake. I think it's like a peanut butter, but like, or Tyson made it, or Tyson helped her make it. And it had blue icing or something blue on top. And she gives it to him. And they have this really cute scene on the beach. And this part gave Percabeth. Earlier, the previous moments that they had, like the kisses on the cheek, the little flirtatious moments here and there, it didn't fit for me. This fit, and this ate real bad. And they share the dish, and he makes a wish, and they kiss. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, but they kiss, like they kiss. And obviously they didn't have any privacy. Well, they did later. He said that he took her to the bottom of the ocean and opened up like an air pocket, and they was down there for hours. And I was like, oh, that's cute. But also, like, y'all get to talk and have y'all's little fun time, whatever. Everybody saw them kiss, and Clarice was like, it's about time. Like, everybody was seeing the chemistry there, but y'all. And Annabeth was also like, oh, like, Rachel, she won't be around. I think, like, she was like, Rachel won't be around. I get to have you all to myself now. I understand her. I do. Percy talks to Annabeth about the river Styx, and how when Luke snapped out of it, that would insinuate that the promise that he made to Thalia and Annabeth, his family, was what grounded him back to reality. But specifically Annabeth grounded him to the mortal world, and that was his weak spot in his mind, connected to, you know, the weak spot that he had underneath his armpit. And he, I think, told Annabeth that he saw her in the river Styx. And in my mind, when I read this, I was like, if I had 2 nickels for every time Annabeth Chase was the thing that grounded people back to their mortal world, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's the idea that it happened twice. Chapter 23. I said Annabeth finally gets off Rachel's neck. So many new demigods coming to camp, and we're wrapping this summer up. And this book was so good from start to finish. I don't know, ranking wise, where I would put it. I need to look at them cover to cover to cover. But it's definitely like, it's top 2 for me. The other books were good, but I do want to say that one of them, I remember saying it had a slow start for me. The other books did not. Maybe 2 of them out of the 5 had a slow start, so they would be at the bottom. Even though I liked them and they were good, comparatively, like comparing it to one that was full gas whole time, that's what I mean. But if there is any question you have about my thoughts, opinions on this book or the series out of the collection that I read and recorded and uploaded to YouTube, please let me know. Drop a comment, leave some likes, do whatever, the YouTube things. Let me know what book I should read next, because I do love having a little book. When I finished this book, I was like, man, what's next? Like, what's next? I don't know if I should read another book from Riordan. I might. Or if I should jump into something else. We'll see. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with me. This has been such... Sorry, there's a squirrel and I got distracted. This has been... I enjoyed reading these books a lot. And I know I said this in the very first video that I wonder how I would have interpreted reading these as a kid or, you know, a preteen, whatever, versus an adult. If I would have ate it up the same way, or if I would have understood it in the way that I do, or if I would have had the same opinions that I do now. I do know after reading this book, or this series, I understand why people hate the movies. I get it. I would too. I like the movies as a standalone idea, separating them from what its origins are. But if you're connecting it with the books,